Greetings, programs. This video will cover quite a few Simulacrum, Simplicity Strength, and Leech curse-related mechanics. In addition, later in the video, I'll be covering my opinions on the results, recommended gearing based on this knowledge going forward, and I will show clips of the testing performed. Links to the testing values in a Google Docs spreadsheet and the written mechanics posting will be included in the description below. So to kick it off, the Haunted Visions now allows simulacrums to last forever as of patch 269, which means now more than ever, we are relying on our simulacrums to perform. This merits them worth investigation. So I was pushing with the Haunted Visions, simulacrums, Blood and Bone Rune, Curse Scythe, Poison Scythe build, LoD Poison Scythe, and I noticed huge health returns. Basically, these were returns that were significantly larger than would be expected from a single Simplicity Strength hit. So my assumption was that what was going on there was that the Sims could be proccing the Simplicity Strength and thereby returning 12% per swipe instead of the normal 4%, but I was completely wrong in that. After investigating, Simplicity Strength does not proc from the simulacrums, only from the player, and only once per attack. However, upon testing Leech, hitting enemies affected by the Leech curse returns significantly more HP when simulacrums are summoned and also attacking. Anywhere from 12% to about 16.5% of player HP is gained per target affected by Leech that is hit. Tested values were anywhere from 3.2 to 4.4 times higher than the expected 2% of player HP per target hit. Wow. Unlike Simplicity Strength, Leech is applied per target, so these significant HP gains also scale with density. It's really amazing with a build that scales damage with density, right? So this means in high enough density, even at 1.5 to 2 million HP, you could be restoring anywhere from 60, 70 to all the way to 100% of your health pool per swing. My theory is that the Leech return value coming from Simulacrum is not returning based on player HP, but is instead returning on Simulacrum health or toughness, which, based on my testing, does not appear to be affected by player-worn damage reduction. So DR doesn't appear to be affecting this value at all, scaling this value at all, but it does appear to scale with vitality and life percent separately. This makes having higher vitality from Paragon and life percent on gear extremely important. I'd like to quickly emphasize the separate nature of the scaling. Testing near equivalent player HP values, I ran a lower 84.5% life setup and then tested a higher 98.5% life setup by adding a 14% life affix to the build, but balancing the HP value to be almost equivalent. And then the result was the simulacrums returned approximately 12% more HP per target with the extra life percent affix equipped as compared to not having this. Whoa. Notably, having two simulacrums also instead of one does increase the HP the player gains from Leech by about 80 to 90%, so the Blood and Bone Rune here will be highly beneficial in this regard as well. So for opinion feedback on this, I actually quite enjoy the fact that we have some mechanism here when pushing to quickly and reliably recover Necromancer HP. And I like that this allows gearing for vitality and life percent more advantageous and makes it more interesting, more worthwhile. However, after having tested this, I can definitely say that the amount of recovery is exceedingly high, especially considering that Leech is applied per target or can be applied to multiple targets. Now, it's not to say the scaling with density is an issue. I actually quite enjoy that aspect, and I also enjoy the fact that vitality and life percent here could be used to scale up the amount. But perhaps we could do something a little different and change it to be based off of player health instead of Simulacrum HP. But we could also increase the amount to compensate, because right now if we simply made that change, the recovery would decrease so much it wouldn't be even like worth recognizing, and it would be very noticeable. Your recovery would drop too much, basically. But maybe there's some middle ground here that we could opt for that would allow builds that don't use Simulacrum but do use Leech to also benefit the same way that a Simulacrum and the Leech build currently is. Because right now, if you want to benefit from this mechanic, you have to use both. Alrighty, now we're going to get into some skill and item options. So aside from affixes on gear, the major build options for gearing extra life percent include, and we're going to go over some of the lesser, probably less good options first here. Devour Satiated. So this skill requires a skill slot and would either trade off damage from having one less Nair stack, or that Nair's multiplier, of course, one less poison skill, gives you less damage, or you trade off mobility because you'd probably would be running Blood Rush in your build instead if you weren't running Devour. However, it is a great source of life percent, providing 50% when fully ramped up. Duration stacks up to about 10 minutes, so if you're consistently killing monsters, you're always going to have this buff active. However, that being said, when pushing, that might not be the case, right? So you're going to have significantly fewer corpses to consume, and you may lose out on this bonus. So that's a definite downside for opting for this choice, and is probably why I will be avoiding this option. Yeah. On a similar vein, we have the Insatiable Belt, which is a belt, so it provides up to 25% life when picking up health globes. We don't want to opt for this item because the value here, toughness-wise, is significantly lower than the Dainty's Binding. And we already have a curse in the build to easily apply Dainties with Trag'oul's Corroded Fang and Cursed Scythe, whereas Globe Generation would also require both Devour and Life from Death, a passive, so it's probably not worth opting for. Alright, getting now into some of the more optimal choices, I would actually prefer the Leoric's Crown. Such a great option for the helmet slot, especially at very efficient for gearing at lower paragons as well. And when I say lower paragons, it's actually a lower and like a moderate paragon amount as well, because it's just the synergy here is insane. It's arguably the most efficient option because the helm slot is trading off only with Andariel's Visage, and Andariel's Visage, it requires you're giving up Int, you're giving up Vite with the Andariels, so you're giving up a lot to slot that. Therefore, the Leoric's Crown will be the best option in giving you extra life percentage. Can give you up to 23% extra life when you put the Amethyst in the helmet, on top of already having the 23% from the Amethyst itself. So, great option, highly recommend Leoric's Crown. Next up, we'll move on to the Andariel's Visage. Andariel's could still be more efficient at like really, really high paragons. I'm talking like 4k plus paragon, 3.5k, 4k plus. And this is where you would have enough main stat and extra vitality to make up for the over 2,000 combined int and vite, right? Because you're losing one int roll and one vite roll that you have to give up there to make up for those losses, basically. You would still want to gear with a socket on the Andariel's Visage based on the findings we've discovered here in our testing. So it makes it even more of a higher paragon option, especially. However, Andariel's Visage does roll with attack speed. You can get crit. You also can get elemental damage on it. These are very good offensive options, and they can also help with recovery as well. So, yeah, it might be worth it at certain paragon levels, but I don't recommend it for most players. Yeah. Tal's chess piece, similarly, while unrelated to the topic of life percent, seeing as you can roll life percent on either Tal's or Aquila. Quick reminder here, if you are running a Tal's chess piece, you're going to want life percent and plus armor, no vitality, to run optimally. Yeah, just hint. I do think Tal's is not as good of an option as many players are thinking, basically. Especially if you're running a no essence dump build, meaning we're not running the Skeletal Mage with the Raise S on this, and we have that on our skill bar. The damage reduction and toughness that you can get from the Aquila will be more worthwhile in progressing. So, more so than getting an extra breakpoint, that 7% attack speed affix can offer. So to summarize, between opting for Andariel's and Tao's Chestpiece, I would replace the Leo's Crown over replacing an Aquila if you're going to opt for more attack speed. However, I would highly recommend only doing this at super high Paragon levels. So when it comes to increasing recovery, answering the question, should I gear for life percent and vitality, or should I be opting for attack speed? And my opinion on this is to gear both in a kind of balance. You don't want to overcommit to attack speed, because this will have you sitting with too many affixes taken up and basically dead simulacrums. Plus your toughness as well will be a little bit lower. However, if you dedicate a few of these affix slots to extra vitality and life percent, especially when you're at lower paragons, your simulacrums will survive better, and the necromancer will have increased toughness. And you'll still have a fairly quick attack speed for rapid recovery and application of the Leech Curse via the Trag'oul's Corroded Fang and Curse Scythe attacks. So for recommended attack speed breakpoints, on the lower end or the bare minimum, you're going to want to shoot for the 31 FPA breakpoint. And this is with attack speed on weapon and Paragon. Crispin Sentence rolls default attack speed, so you want attack speed crit there, and then the Enchantress's Focused Mind ability. Although notably, as seen in my early season GR 128 1200 Paragon clear, you can easily run as low as 33 frames per attack and still perform fairly well with relatively few Necromancer or Simulacrum deaths. With effort, you could gear for the 29 frames per attack breakpoint. It's notable that this breakpoint is probably only achievable if you have at least like 1.5 thousand, so 1500 paragons, to trade a little bit more into vitality with your paragon. This is because you have to basically roll that extra attack speed affix on the gloves. And while this extra attack speed affix does get you 2 extra breakpoints, so it's well worth it, it's just very hard to fit in. For super high, like 4K plus Paragon players, those players can opt for the 28 frames per attack breakpoint, but for the majority of players, this is not recommended because it's just not a lot of players are going to hit this Paragon level, right? So one cool thing about the attack speed breakpoints here is that while increasing them is highly advantageous for both leech application, damage, and recovery, there still exists considerable value for trading the glove affix off for vitality if need be. Basically, if you're sitting at 30 or 31 FPA instead of 29, it's okay, right? I wouldn't fret too much about it. It's a perfect breakpoint to be at as well, right? It's a good breakpoints. Recommended priority order for weapons is going to be minimum damage range to the max you can, because simulacrums are based on the minimum damage range of your weapon. Then next in priority you have the percent damage. Both minimum and maximum damage on weapons scale with this percentage, so because we're only interested in the minimum portion, but it's still the best affix. And then you also have next in line you have attack speed. For the aforementioned reasons, it will increase both damage and recovery. Then lastly, sort of equal in priority depending on your Paragon. If you're lower Paragon, you can opt for 1000 int, or if you're higher Paragon, definitely seek out that area damage. So 24% area damage will be used incredibly well with this build because it's scaling with density. Area damage helps you do that, so more damage. So for the phylactery, we have almost the same deal going on. We have the minimum damage range. You want to get that to maximum potential. You want crit hit chance, and you also want Grim Scythe damage next. So those are about equal in priority. Depends if you have the Grim Scythe damage on the other pieces like you should. The last affix that I would be in contention with is either vitality or area damage. Now, I would say most of the time for most players, I'm going to recommend Vitality here because it's just going to be so helpful, boosting the health of your simulacrums and also your recovery, right? So, and also jives well with your own toughness because you're putting a lot of life percent rolls on other pieces. This will assist well there. I would not put the life percent affix there because 1k Vite is usually more worthwhile in this regard, and I don't think just because our simulacrums can benefit more from life percent that we should like go full on life percent. We should fit it in where it makes sense, right? Higher Paragon players, and as you scale up, you can opt for area damage in this affix slot instead of Vitality, which would be a good choice. Notably, the phylactery rolls with int by default, so you can't really change that, so there you go. So the fact that life percent and Vitality are so valuable makes it makes them desirable pretty much even at slightly higher paragons, because they will allow your simulacrums to survive longer and allow for higher recovery via leech. While paragon can be subbed in, there are very few replacements for life percentage, so we're going to want to fit this affix on gear in several places. You're going to typical placements that you will normally opt for include Paragon, 25%, the Amethyst in the helmet, 23%. If you're using a Leoric's crown, that'll be anywhere from 17.25% to 23% increase. You're going to go for the belt, which will be a 15% affix, the chest piece, again 15%, and shoulder piece 15%. Notably, the 15% life affix can be rolled on rings, and the 18% life can be rolled on amulets. While these are not typical placements for this affix, if you're at lower paragons and your conventional elements or your flavor of time are not perfected but have life percent on them, these will still be really, really good options for increasing toughness for you and your simulacrums, and a great option for increased recovery, right? Especially because the Resist Volition rolls with RCR by default, and therefore can be difficult to acquire at near 50% legendary affix with either life percent or area damage naturally rolling. Now, between life percent and vitality on the chest and pants, I would absolutely prioritize life percent over vitality. Chest can roll armor at 775, and we will scale armor quite a bit with this build also, so armor will be a priority over vitality on the chest piece. The belt has space for 2 optional affixes, but because it can only roll 516 armor, we will prioritize life percent first and then vitality on the belt. So you basically won't have armor on your belt. You'll have Grim Scythe damage, life percent, vitality, right? For 1k all the way up to about 3k paragons, 3000 paragon, you will be absolutely wanting to include amethysts in your chest piece and pants for the extra vitality. Considering this scales greatly with the extra life percent, you'll be gearing. While you could go for rubies or emeralds here, I feel simply going for extra armor affixes on the pants, chest, and opting for strength on the gloves at low to mid paragon levels will ensure more than enough base armor for the armor increasing skills and items that the build uses and scales, well with. You can start by replacing amethysts and pants or with rubies or emeralds at about 3k paragon, and by about 4k paragon you can start replacing the remaining amethysts in the chest piece with rubies or emeralds. So this is how I would go about replacing those once you obtain that much paragon, if you do. Again, I'll be going over the full affixes as recommended in the video guide soon to come, but I just felt that these were worth mentioning considering they are most impacted by this newfound knowledge relating to Leech. Alrighty, I want to thank everyone for sitting through that lengthy mechanics talk and recommendations and opinions and feedback. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it changes your outlook and gearing going into season with at least with the Lazy of Dreams Poison Scythe Necromancer that's very popular this season, season 21. Definitely going to be modifying my own build because before this testing I wasn't necessarily following all of these recommendations. I just happened to chance upon some of them naturally from my own usual decision making. So I got lucky in that regard, I guess. But do keep an eye out for a full video guide. I will be coming out with a guide for the LoD Poison Scythe Necromancer very soon. I managed to clear 128, which is a fairly good early season clear, and I wanted to share both the build I did it with and recommendations and full gearing and all that, and gameplay tips and everything. So super excited to get that out to everyone, and